Hello and welcome back to Oversky Deck Doctor. This week we're going to take a look at my green-blue ancient ramp deck. I've been playing this ramp list for a little while now. It's done very well for me on ladder, and it takes some of the new changes that we had in a recent patch and applies them to the blue-green ramp archetype. Now, I really like Ancient Boar, so I wanted to get Ancient Boar into this list, and I thought, how do I make Ancient Boar better? So I added Ancient Herald. So we have two ancient cards that have nice synergies together. But then with the change to Mystic Beast as well, it's like, well, I might as well get Mystic Beast in as well. This is going to mean that I get very cheap, effective creatures and can apply a lot of pressure. As you can see, nothing too out of the ordinary as far as ramp cards go, I suppose. You have the Frog Tossers, we have the Goro, Shifting Octopus. We also have the Azura Sky Whale as our finisher. We have the Elemental cards. But because we're playing these like very efficient 4/5 creatures in the Mystic Beast and the Ancient Boar, I decided to add some tools to help them. So we have stuff like Elderwood Embrace and Frogify coming into this list to give them a hand. So let's get into the deck and talk about the cards. Our first selection of cards are the early game creatures. You want to see these in your opening hand or within the first couple of turns. Wood Elemental is a great green creature for ramp builds. It's a 2/4 taunt, so it can help against rush as well. But what's more important is it develops a forest. We have some high land cost creatures in this list, so we need to get those lands out fast. Water Elemental does the same thing. Very good with the Explorer as well. You can go Lake Explore, Water Elemental Lake, going straight to a well and setting up collection from turn 2. But again, it's going to be used for its land ramp mainly, but as a jump-in 3/3, very good double collector as well. And when you combined it with Elderwood Embrace or Aurora Mythmaker, it's going to cause a lot of problems. Now, Ancient Herald is a card that hasn't featured in Blue-Green Ramp in quite some time, so I don't actually believe it's featured in it properly ever, to be honest. This is something I've been trying out. It's a 5/6/6 Faeria creature, costs 1 lake, which is really good because if you pick this up in your opening hand, you can go Forest, Lake, Herald, and then it can start collecting. As a 5/6, it's very durable as well, so it has the stats of a Ground Shaker, and we all know how good Ground Shaker is, but also on its gift ability, the next creature you draw with 5 life or more gets a 2 cost reduction on its Faeria value. So Mystic Beasts become 1 cost, Ancient Boars become 1 cost if you control a creature with 5 life or more. So great synergies with those 2 cards, reducing their Faeria's cost. And this guy is going to be fighting on the front lines for you in the double collection spot and giving it a bit of ramp as well. Up next, we have some of the more expensive cards on the land requirement. Not too high in cost, but you're going to need to get some lands down first before you're able to play these. Now, Mystic Beast is a fantastic creature. It's a jumper, 4/5 if summoned on an opponent's well, which is quite easy in a deck which has a lot of land ramp, and you're going to be gearing towards getting a Mystic Beast spot with this card in the build. So that's going to be one of your priorities. And as a 4/5, very durable, synergizes with Ancient Boar, synergizes with the Ancient Herald, and it's a jumper as well. So it can chase down enemy creatures, it can be used as a very sturdy double collector. Now, Shifting Octopus is a very flexible card that can do a lot of things. Become a jumper, it can become a taunt, it become a 5/5, a 7/3, a 3/7. Lots of different ways you can build your octopus when you play it. And you can build it in a way which it helps you fight on board. 5/5s are very good for that. Or maybe help you collect Faeria, 3/5 with jump. Maybe a taunter, 3/5 with taunt. Or maybe if you want to just keep a high life creature on the board to get synergies for the Ancient Boar, you can build a 3/7. So lots of different ways you can build Shifting Octopus, and it can adapt to any situation. Now, Ancient Boar is a new one because this card has been buffed, much like the Mystic Beast. It had a land reduction on the Ancient Boar. It now costs 2 wild, 1 forest, and it has a cost reduction of 2 if you control a creature with 5 life or more. And as you can see, we do have a lot of those style of creatures in this list. It also has dash 2, so it can be played very aggressively or very defensively, depending on what you want the board to do. And you have to take into consideration how you play your forests to give good dash paths for the boar if you want to play it in between the wells, or you want to be able to dash up and start challenge your opponent on their side of the field. So very strong card for free Faeria, even better for one Faeria if you get the cost reduction on Ancient Herald. I have been loving this card so far. Our next selection are the late game creatures. You're going to need a lot of land to get these guys down, but they have very powerful abilities. Frog Tosser is our removal card. There's only 2 of them in deck because they can be quite clunky in some situations, so I decided I either have 2 Skywhale or I have 2 Frog Tossers, but I feel that Skywhale has the bigger impact in the late game, so I decided to go with more Skywhales. But Frog Tosser, fantastic card, deal 4 damage to a creature with its gift ability, which is fight an enemy creature, and then summon a 2/2 frog, so you get an additional creature regardless of what happens to the Frog Tosser, if it lives or dies, which is really good because that is jump as well, and jump is a fantastic mechanic for moving around the board. For Goro, Merchant of Wonders, this card is fantastic. It is a jumper, it's a free 5, so it synergizes with the Ancient Boar, and you get to choose to have one of its treasures, the Urn of Gabria, the Crystal Dragon, or Yulani's Medallion. Now, the default choice for Goro is mainly the Urn of Gabria. This gives you additional Faeria and additional card draw, can help proc those Ancient Herald triggers, dig deeper for land ramp, or to find the Skywhale, and that's what I've been using for Goro for, just to get a really sturdy collector down, but also dig deeper into deck and build towards the win condition. And that is the Azura Skywhale, you know, the very powerful wild card that came with the Oversky, an 8 wildland 6 Faeria creature, which is a 6/6 flying charge free, swallows an enemy creature. And you can position these in a way where they can be quite aggressive, or you can use them for board control. They don't collect Faeria, so keep that in mind. You don't need to play these guys on wells, you can play them in more central in the map. That's what I've been doing recently. Building an additional land above my central land in front of my orb, and then just slotting it in the middle, because this gives me a lot of reach around the board, but also gives me aggressive avenues if I want to push 6 damage. And Azura Skywhale is the deck's win condition. Last but not least, we have the utility cards. Eldenwood Embrace, fantastic buff card, probably the best power-up card in green. 2/4 is very good. The extra life on this card is going to help us with our Ancient Boar synergy. And with the jump creatures in the deck, and with the Boar which can dash, you know, Elderwood is very deadly, so fantastic card for this style of ramp build. Aurora Mythmaker, again, like another power-up, we can turn some of our creatures who are damaged or maybe a bit too low in attack into 6 attacks, and this can kill Ground Shakers, opposing Ancient Heralds. So a lot of reach with Aurora, and she is a very strong card, and she fits perfectly into this style of ramp build. Last but not least, we have Frogify. Now, Frogify kind of dropped off for a bit during the Oversky expansion because the swallow mechanic became kind of the focal point of removal. But I feel Frogify is still a strong card, and I think it's better in faster, less control-orientated ramp builds like this one, which relies on tempo plays like the Mystic Beast and the Ancient Boar. So allowing the Mystic Beast and the Boar to clear creatures that are only 2/2s is really helpful, because the more value we can get out of these creatures, the better. And I feel Frogify is still very good for that. So we have Azura Skywhale as our late game win condition and removal, but we also have Frogify as some early game options when dealing with big creatures. Now we've finished taking a look at the cards, let's take a look at your mulligan. You're going to want to find an elemental card because you want to start the land ramp as quickly as possible, because this enables you to use those high land required creatures as quickly as possible, and that's very important. So the wood elemental and the water elemental are fantastic keeps, especially the water elemental if you have explore, because you can go lake, explore, water elemental, or you can go explore, forest, wood elemental. This will give you a turn 2 harvester. Alternatively, you can keep the Ancient Herald. It is a turn 2 play. It's a very bulky one at that. It's going to be quite difficult to clear or demand a lot of removal. And then you get its gift ability, which can trigger on the Ancient Herald. Well, other Ancient Heralds, the Boar, the Mystic Beast, or even for Goro. So getting that gift ability off early is always really good. Now, if you do pick up one of these creatures, there are a few cards you can keep to help you with board control. Elderwood Embrace is a fantastic choice. Extend the power and life of your creatures to make sure you can combat your enemies. Shifting Octopus is really good as well because this is a very flexible creature. It only requires 3 special lands and you can adapt this to any situation. The Ancient Boar is also a good keep if you get a high life creature like the Ancient Herald, or maybe with a Shifting Octopus because you can get it down for free Faeria. And that's what you want to do with this card mainly. You want to play it for as cheap as possible. Alternatively, if you can land ramp very quick to an opponent's well, you could also keep a Mystic Beast. Now you've seen a deck, how much does it cost? And I was very impressed with the price of this list, considering how strong it's been for me so far. It has 15 commons, 5 rares, and 1 legendary. Every other card is featured in the Oversky. 15 commons, 5 rares, and 1 legendary, pricing at 495 Memoria. That is cheap as chips. If you want to get a very cheap deck and get some Oversky cards as well, this is a fantastic option for you if you're starting out in Faeria. And speaking of the Oversky, you are going to need 2 Oversky islands to complete this list. So you don't even need all the Oversky, you only need 2. And that is going to be the Eulani's Realm and the Wisp Light Falls. And these 2 islands will give you access to all the Oversky cards you need to finish this list. Let's take a look at the strengths and weaknesses. Fast land ramp. All the elementals are a great way for accelerating your land count and basically giving you access to your stronger Oversky cards quicker. It's very important in a deck that needs 8 special lands to find its win condition. Cheap creatures with high life value, so the Ancient Boar and the Mystic Beast are incredibly cheap for what they offer you. A 4/5 with jump and a 4/5 with dash 2. So these creatures are cheap and efficient, allowing you to keep Faeria for later on, where you need to pay for cards like the Sky Whale to finish off your opponent. And speaking of Sky Whale, powerful win conditions from the Oversky expansion. Azure Sky Whale is a great finisher for this deck. You can play this in the late game or just at the end of the mid game, swallow the final threat and then push for lethal damage. You also get access to cards like the Shifting Octopus, the Frog Tosser, and Fugoro, all very powerful blue-green cards from the Oversky expansion. Now, this deck does rely on land ramp, and if you do not get quick lands, it can be very problematic against tempo-orientated builds. So fast decks can punish you if you pick up, say, a lot of your expensive land creatures, but no land ramp to give it. So it can be a little clunky at times, but I feel that there's a lot of cards in this list to help with that. We know we have the Ancient Heralds, which are going to reduce the cost of creatures anyway. So even if you can't get a full value Boar off for its cost reduction, from its natural cost reduction, perhaps the reduction from the Ancient Heralds can make up for that. So there are ways to get on board with this list. I think a little easier than some of the old ramp builds, but you do need those lands to get the deck going. Now, it's hard to regain initiative once board control is lost, so this is a very common thing when it comes to green and blue, simply because they don't have on-hand removal to answer creatures if they don't have board control. So decks like red and yellow have tons of removal. While this deck does have Frog Tosser, it only has 2 of them, and you need to have all the lands in order to make use of it. So one of the major flaws of these 2 colors is regaining initiative after it's lost. So you want to try and keep a creature on board at all times. You do not want to go into an empty board and your opponent to establish creatures, because it'll be very hard for you to come back, especially against red and yellow. Last but not least, we'll take a look at the land placement. So for this style of ramp build, you want to build in front of your orb and then build towards a well. This is a faster variation than the blue-green ramp that they're used to. It doesn't have the Living Willow feed combo. It relies on taking early board control with cheap, efficient creatures. So you want to build lands according to what you draw, really. Like if you have the water elemental, you want to prioritize making sure that water elemental can collect next turn, and the same applies for your wood elemental. It's a little easier for the water elemental to collect because of this jump, but the wood elemental can struggle if you don't, say, place a lake first into a forest into a wood elemental. So keep that in mind. And then you want to push your land up into the wells and take control of them. And this is where you'll do a lot of your fighting, because you rely on taking lands on your opponent's wells in order to summon the Mystic Beast. And as you can see here, these are the spots you're going to be looking for. Now, you don't need all of these. You ideally want an aggressive one and an inner well one, but you can take what you can get sometimes. If your opponent's wise to your strategies, they're going to do everything in their power to stop you from getting this land, so keep that in mind. And once this Mystic Beast land is set up, you want to consider where you want your forest to be in order to dash your Ancient Boar. Now, Ancient Boar needs a good line to dash down, so if you play a forest on your well, it can dash straight up. If you play a forest in the wells, it can dash straight across. So keep that in mind when building your forest. But also, another thing to take into consideration is you want a good lake on the well, so when you summon your water elementals, your Fagoro and your Mystic Beast, they can double collect if you need to. Sometimes you're going to have to give up that forest spot, which I've showed here, then on your own well, to set up a lake in the early game, but then you can place a forest behind it, and this does give a decent dash avenue for the Ancient Boar. So the land plan is build towards the wells, take control of them, get that Mystic Beast spot, get a good forest down for your Ancient Boars, take over the board, swallow your last opponent's creature with the Azura Sky Whale, and take the win. That wraps up this episode of Oversky Deck Doctor, taking a look at my Ancient Ramp build. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode and give this deck a go. It's very cheap to craft, so you should have no excuses for not playing this deck. I was surprised at how cheap this is and how strong it's been for me. I climbed from rank 10 to rank 5 very quickly with this build. I've been playing the red-yellow events from Card Spotlight recently, so I've been switching between those two decks through my rank 5 playthrough at the moment, and I'm currently around rank 3, so I may finish off my climb to God rank with this build because I feel it's very strong. Thanks again for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, drop a subscribe to keep up to date of when our content goes live. If you'd like to see a cool red-yellow build, be sure to check out Card Spotlight. I just covered the Sky and Enemy during that article, but I also played a really fun red-yellow events control deck, which is fantastic, and I definitely recommend giving that a look. Thanks again, guys, and enjoy Ancient Ramp.